Are you confused by all the mirrorless cameras out there and can't decide which one's the right one for you? Look no further. We've put together a helpful guide finding the perfect camera for you. We'll take you through the best mirrorless camera for each use. Get ready to explore their strengths and weaknesses and pick up some honorable mentions along the way. Keep watching to find your dream mirrorless camera. When determining the best mirrorless camera for online video, it needs to meet the needs of a content creator. The best mirrorless camera for online video is the Canon R8 for $1,500. The R8 captures tons of detail with rich, vibrant colors thanks to its 24.2 megapixel full-frame CMOS sensor. It's capable of capturing 4K footage at 60 frames per second in 10-bit internally with Canon Log 3. With the industry-leading dual-pixel CMOS autofocus 2 system, the R8 offers quick and accurate autofocus. Finally, the R8 has both a microphone input and a headphone output. For strengths, the R8 has both a mic and headphone jack, a full-frame sensor, and an affordable price tag. For its weaknesses, the R8 has a single media slot and only offers digital image stabilization. For honorable mentions, we have the Fujifilm X-T5 and the Sony a6600. The hybrid photo-video camera needs to have a balance between both the photo and video features. The best mirrorless hybrid photo-video camera is the Canon R6 Mark II for $2,500. The R6 features the same 24.2 megapixel full-frame CMOS sensor as the R8. It also offers similar video features, capturing up to 4K at 60 frames per second in 10-bit internally with C-Log 3. However, it can capture even more detail and color by externally recording the 6K RAW it outputs. The R6 also boasts better stabilization thanks to its sensor shift 5-axis image stabilization system that stabilizes the sensor itself. When shooting stills, the R6 shoots up to 12 frames per second RAW using the mechanical shutter and 40 frames per second with its electronic shutter. The R6 Mark II has dual UHS 2 SD card slots that make extended shooting sessions so much easier. The R6 Mark II's strengths are its 5-axis sensor shift stabilization, ability to record 10-bit 422 H.265 UHD 4K video internally, and industry-leading dual-pixel CMOS autofocus 2. Its weakness is its micro HDMI output. Come on, Canon, give us a full-size HDMI port. We have 3 honorable mentions for this category: the Sony a7 IV, the Nikon Z7 II, and the Fujifilm X-H2S. The best run-and-gun mirrorless camera should be ready to shoot in any situation. The best run-and-gun mirrorless camera is the Sony a7S III for $3,500. This camera features a 12-megapixel full-frame Exmor-R BSI CMOS sensor that can shoot slow motion in 4K up to 120 frames per second in 10-bit 422 or 16-bit RAW output via its HDMI. You get a ton of dynamic range when shooting the hybrid log gamma. The a7S III's ready to capture whatever's in front of it with its 759-point hybrid autofocus. Also, its 5-axis image stabilization is great for keeping your shot steady, and it has dual media slots offering 2 different media options. For strengths, the a7S III has great low-light performance and face detect autofocus. Its weakness are its larger weight and size, and it only offers auto exposure for high-speed video. Honorable mention goes to the Canon R5C. A great cinematic mirrorless camera needs to support anamorphic shooting and be able to capture the film look. The most cinematic mirrorless camera is the Panasonic Lumix GH6 for $1,700. The GH6 features a 25.2 megapixel Live MOS Micro Four Thirds sensor. This camera can internally capture 4K at 60 frames per second in 422 10-bit, or if you want to shoot wide, you can shoot up to 5.7K and crop later. For cinematic slow motion, the camera can capture up to 60 frames per second in 5.7K, 4K and 120 frames per second, and HD high frame rate mode at 300 frames per second. The GH6 enables a ProRes workflow offering ProRes 422 HQ internally. Also, you can get even more dynamic range using either Vlog or Dynamic Range Boost. The GH6 features dual IS2, offering 7.5 stop 5-axis sensor stabilization, and it's got dual card slots with 2 different types of media, allowing for media flexibility. The GH6 strengths are its ability to shoot ProRes 422 HQ internally and 4K at 120 frames per second. Its in-body sensor shift 5-axis image stabilization and dual base ISO are major pluses as well. For weakness, it has 2 different types of media slots. The honorable mentions go to the Canon EOS R5, Panasonic Lumix S1H, and the Nikon Z9. The best all-around mirrorless camera should have a great feature set and a reasonable price. The best all-around mirrorless camera is the Panasonic Lumix S5 II for $2,000. The S5 II features a 24.2 megapixel full-frame CMOS sensor that'll capture 6K at 30 frames per second in 420 10-bit. The camera can shoot up to 4K 60 frames per second in 422 10-bit. And it has super reliable 779-point phase detection autofocus system, 5-axis sensor shift image stabilization, and dual UHS-2 SD card slots. Its strengths are its ability to capture 6K at 30 frames per second and 422 4K at 60 frames per second. Its weakness is that it has an APS-C crop when shooting 4K at 60 frames per second. For honorable mentions, we have the Sony a7 III, the Nikon Z6 II, and the Fujifilm X-H2S.